Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us again this morning, Friday, August 22nd. This is Melissa Rogozinski. I am the founder and president of the ESI Roundtable and your host today for our sneak peek on data security and privacy. Today we have with us Alex Khoury of Balch and Bingham in Atlanta, Georgia. Alex will be talking at the hands-on event in detail about data security and privacy, which is probably the hottest topic right now in the field of e-discovery. And Alex has actually taught me a lot. He talks a lot about what vendors should have in place, the role of law firms and whether or not law firms should host data, client data in-house, and his reasons why. And then we also have Todd Eastman with Logikcull out of Washington, D.C. We're very excited to have Logikcull on board for a couple of reasons. Logic has their own platform, and it's beautifully designed for the smaller to mid-sized cases. Certainly they can handle larger matters, but there aren't a whole lot of service providers who are capable of handling small to mid-sized cases, which is really where the majority of the need is in e-discovery. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. I'm actually covering for Alex today. Alex, unfortunately, had a hearing this morning and was unable to make it, so I'm going to cover his materials for him. So we'll start here with this. This chart shows us the number of reported data breaches. And as you can see, although there are a few spikes, the average number of data breaches is clearly on the rise. Most data companies are unaware that a breach has occurred. So, law firms are probably the most susceptible to it because they're simply not prepared for it. This chart shows us the reasons for data breach. A great majority is done for malicious or criminal attacks. It's the number one cause of data breaches, and it's an international business. The more dependent a country is on technology, the more likely it will become a target of malicious data breach. And the United States is the number one victim of hacking. Case in point are, the recent news on the Russian crime ring and the Target breach. Most of you are aware the Russian crime ring was detected by a firm out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin called Hold Security. And this small group of Russians, they don't believe it was government related, accessed and stole 1.2 billion login combinations and 500 email addresses. And we're all aware of the Target breach. Target, there were 40 million credit card numbers stolen, and actually mine was one of them. My bank sent me a new card. 70 million addresses, phone numbers, and other pieces of personal information were hacked by folks from Eastern Europe, which actually we'll talk about that later too. Most of these hacking groups are coming from countries outside of the United States. In May, the United States Department of Justice charged 5 individuals with the People's Liberation Army of China for stealing information about the design and operation of U.S. nuclear power plants. And although the United States has given stern warning to China for such intrusions, this is actually the first time that individuals have been charged. That being said, China is only second to Indonesia for the most prodigious hacking nation. And a recent study, I actually was reading the Inside Counsel magazine from the July issue just last month, and a recent study reported in Inside Counsel found that the average cost of data breach to be $5.5 million, with the average cost per record at $194. As far as human factor, a data breach can be any of the following, losing a thumb drive, misplacing a laptop, leaving your phone at a restaurant or on vacation, or having your device stolen. And then as far as system failure, this is really an IT matter. IT is largely responsible for security and safeguards on the system. Examples of systems failure are failure to implement backup plans, testing of networks, software, hardware, code, not having filters on what employees can or cannot download, which could allow or prevent malware and viruses. So as I stated earlier, law firms really are pretty easy targets for hackers because they typically don't have security and safeguards in place specifically designed to protect sensitive information. And, you know, it's not limited to litigation and e-discovery, which is really kind of curious because when we're dealing with ESI or e-discovery, typically law firms think, well, that's just a litigation problem, but it's not. It affects all practice groups. Transactional and patent practices actually have some of the most valuable information for hackers. And we owe it to our clients to take similar safeguards within our law firm. We have to have our own house in order if we're going to be dealing with client information with the way that technology is and the way that, you know, hackers so easily get into our systems. The financial industry is already conducting audits of law firms to ensure necessary security features, and we do think that this is a trend that will continue to spread to other sectors of the economy. So when a data breach does occur, what do we do? What are our first steps? And these are some of the things that Alex will cover more in detail at the hands-on event next Thursday, August 28th. The first thing that Alex recommends is just to stay calm. Not every case involves sensitive data. However, if your case does involve sensitive information, you need to ensure that the data is handled securely. It's a multi-step process. The first thing you need to do is to determine if you can provide adequate security or if you need to outsource the security to a qualified provider. The second thing to do is to determine what exactly is the threat. What is the risk of the loss? An example, a small employment case where you're redacting social security numbers, there's no need to spend a whole lot of money on data security. However, if the value of the data in the case is there, then you do need to be prepared to spend accordingly, and Alex will go into more detail about what he means by that. As far as vulnerability, you really need to determine what's the flaw in your security environment, and it is, just like e-discovery, it's very case-specific. And these first three steps under mitigate the vulnerability, you know, improve physical controls, improve technical controls, improve process controls, are your first three steps to improving your own security in-house. Alternatively, maintain sensitive data offline or outsource it. And then as far as mitigating the threat, if you don't have the money to invest in security, then at least encrypt the data. That way, when hackers steal the data, they won't be able to use it. You also want to redact any sensitive material before you put it online. And this is actually kind of curious. Alex recommends law firms to stop advertising on the website who their clients are. If you don't want hackers breaking into your system, don't advertise, you know, like, for example, Target has good security, but the weakness was found via a phishing email to companies associated with Target, some of their contractors, law firms. It was actually an HVAC contractor who opened up one of these phishing emails, and that's how the hackers got into Target's credit card data. So, you know, Alex just recommends you can find this information in other places, but he recommends that law firms take steps themselves to, eliminate or lessen the exposure of who exactly your clients are. And again, this is something that Alex will go into more detail next week, but there are some examples available about what your first response plan should look like. A couple things we want to focus on here. This is Alex's model on your data breach response plan. He says, no matter how secure you are, you can still be hacked. You need to be prepared. This is his take on a data breach response plan, and it requires cooperation among all departments. You have to work together and act quickly. Particularly in the e-discovery setting, we want to go through four things. First, every entity involving handling data needs to have a plan to understand their own responsibility in addressing the breach. The second thing is, if you're using an e-discovery service provider, before you give them the data, you need to understand what their response will be in a breach situation. Alex, his firm is currently vetting through service providers to create a short list, and he has a very thorough interview process with them in person. He goes to their site to evaluate what the building structure looks like, who has passes and access to certain areas of the building, where the servers are, what kind of protections physically are built around the servers, who has access to that, and that's how he's determining who will make the shortlist for his firm. And Alex will be able to provide you with a more detailed plan to do that at the event. The third thing you want to consider, the law firm and or legal department needs to have what we call a first responders team and plan to address the breach. The law in some states only gives you 10 days to report a data breach, which doesn't really give you a whole lot of time to determine what the scope is, so you have to move quickly. And then the fourth thing is to consider cyber liability insurance. He said it's available and to law firms and legal departments that handle sensitive information. He recommends you have it. And he says it's advisable to work only with service providers who also hold cyber liability insurance. And this insurance would cover notifications to all of the clients or consumers who have been affected. It will provide credit monitoring for them. It will provide for legal fees, forensic investigation, and other tools. Do everything you can to protect data breaches. You can't prevent it, but you can make it very difficult for hackers to get into your system and obtain your sensitive information. And you can be prepared to mitigate the damage when a breach occurs. So at this point, we're going to hand it over to Todd Eastman, and I'm going to go ahead and jump to his website and actually hand it over to Todd to let him do his part of the presentation. Todd, you there?
Yeah, hey everybody. Yeah, I was just, can you see my screen, Melissa?
Yeah, we got your screen.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for passing it over, and we're real excited to be part of what Melissa's doing. We're really big fans of education and, providing content in a way that our users learn. So we're very excited to do the hands-on event next week. Hopefully a lot of you are going to attend either in person or via WebEx. So Logikcull is neat, for a couple different reasons. A big one is that we build in a lot of education, and at the hands-on event, you'll see why. But as far as a little sneak peek, we've built a very simple, and Melissa was very complimentary earlier, an intuitive way to use our platform for e-discovery, basically taking unstructured data and making it very structured. So our website has a lot of information about that. That's this first slide. As far as how it works, if you've ever used Facebook to upload a picture, you can actually, very similar functionality, upload data into Logikcull, and we kind of take it from there. E-discovery is scary for a lot of people, and we want to make it just incredibly simple. So the screen here, you can see you can just upload your data, zip files, PSTs, and whatever you're dealing with, and then we take hold of it from there. We've fully automated the process. It does full text and metadata extraction, OCR, rendering everything to image, all while you sit back and work on other things. And that's important because a lot of people in this industry are very busy, and multitasking is important. So, sitting around and waiting for something is not the most efficient, way to go about your business. And so with Logikcull, we wanted to solve for making this very easy and require as little training as possible. And so one of the things you're seeing here is how data looks after it's been processed. We kind of mimicked the e-commerce experience. So I'm guessing everybody on this webinar has probably used Amazon or eBay, and when you do that, you're doing very powerful filtering. You're looking for a purse or a suit or sunglasses, and you do so with no training. And so we said, why can't the same be done for e-discovery and data? So when your data gets processed and uploaded into Logikcull, we put it into all these nice buckets for you, so you can quickly find, what's important to you and what you're looking for, very quickly. And we'll certainly dive into, much more detail in the hands-on event. And then once you're in the application, and by the way, the application is all web-based, so it works on, all the different web browsers, iPhones, iPads, Droids, Surfaces, and you can fully view the documents. As you can see here, you can do tagging, you can do your coding, all the different things that you may or may not be used to through the course of e-discovery. And you can do all those things from your smartphones or your iPads with your fingers. So it's a very different approach to this, but everybody's mobile and on the go these days. And so we want to address that, and we want to make it easy for this stuff to be done anywhere, anytime, as long as you have a connection to the internet. And then this is kind of the last piece. We've made it very easy. Once you've searched and culled and kind of found the key stuff for your in your data, you can now do full production. So as opposed to having to call up a vendor or struggle through creating a DAP file or some type of load file, we've made it all automated. So a lot like the upload process, you can now quickly export images, natives, DAP files, endorsements, all that stuff very, very easily. And then this last slide is just kind of hitting on, the mobile device. We see with attorneys especially, they're all over the place. When they use our mobile devices or when they use their mobile devices on our technology, they're able to do more work from places that they couldn't before, and that increases their billable hours, and they're also more efficient and able to get stuff done. So it's all very neat and exciting. And so that's the last piece there. And then that's me, and I'll be seeing hopefully a lot of you in person next week. And we're very excited to be there and be part of this. And certainly check out the website when you have some time to learn more. So thank you so much, Melissa. Melissa, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. Sorry, I had it on mute.
Yeah. No worries.
So I kind of want to put a plug in for Logikcull. Roundtable, we do try to be vendor agnostic. But, as most of you know, and for those of you that don't, I've been in litigation personally for 21 years. I was a litigation paralegal for 12 years, and then I myself worked for a service provider for about 7 years, and I've been doing the Roundtable for 5 years as well. So I've been out of being a paralegal for at least 10 years. When I am taking a look at some of these tools and the technology and talking to some of these service providers, and it's my personal preference, but I also think I have a pretty good, thumb on the pulse of what the community really needs. And one of the things that has happened that has caused so much resistance to dealing with it is that service providers often talk in technological terms. And as lawyers and paralegals and lit support, we didn't go to school to practice technology. We went to school and have our degrees to practice law. And so using terminology that's not familiar makes it difficult and increases that fear factor. I think Logikcull does a really excellent job of speaking in the law firm language. Todd, you made a few comments comparing things to it's just like uploading, a picture to Facebook, or it's like, your searches and the things you do when you're going through Amazon and eBay. Those are things that we're familiar with, and that's one of the reasons why I like working with Logikcull. But also, when I'm looking at the technology with certain providers that I can bring to our audience, I look at it from the point of view, if I went back to being a paralegal, which technology would be the easiest for me to learn, would have the shortest amount of, ramp up time for me. And Logikcull certainly has one of those tools. And I just love it. I'm just a big fan. So I'm super excited to have Logic at our workshop next week, the first time we've gotten to work with you guys at one of our events. So very excited about that. What you see here now is the agenda for the workshop next week. And as Todd said, just a couple days ago, we were able to make sure and be able to offer this via WebEx as well. So if you can be there in person, we definitely want you there in person. It will be taking place here in Birmingham, Alabama, and we have some fun events planned. If you can't join us in person, but you still want to be a part of the hands-on training workshop, we can offer it to you via WebEx, and it will be live. You'll have all the content, and you will have the opportunity to engage in all 4 breakout sessions with each of the service providers. So if you intend to register, we need you to go ahead and register by Monday, 5 o'clock. That way we can get your information to the providers and they can get your login credentials set up in time for the event. Feel free to email me, rogo@esiroundtable.org, or you can reach me at 205-873-1234, and we look forward to seeing you in a week. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, and thanks everybody that joined.